So please welcome Rachel Birschbach to the show. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I am so excited to have you here and have met you and have gone down your rabbit hole. And, you know, when I was drawn to you on Instagram, I mean, you're beautiful, you are on these lives, and that's, like I was saying before we push record, that it inspires me because I see like this brave, like you just push past your fear, like you just keep doing it. It's just repetition. And then it gets to be like, this is what I'm doing. And that you inspire me that way. But now that I've gone through pretty much every post on your Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, no wonder she was sent to me. And, I guess I would love to understand, because I don't know, I know you have a degree and a master's in therapy,
Mhm.
right? But
Yep.
then how we evolved into the Reiki and the shamanism and all that. Can we kind of give a brief thing before I have
Yeah,
my questions?
absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, I am trained as a mental health therapist. I have a master's degree in professional community mental health counseling, although I'm not a licensed therapist, and I'll explain a little bit why I did not pursue licensure. So I actually got into energy healing on my own healing journey. So Reiki was one of the very first modalities that kind of came into my awareness after being on my own healing journey for many years in the traditional mental health world, pursuing traditional therapy. And I wasn't receiving I wasn't seeing the level of improvement that I felt that I should with the time I had spent. And so I kind of got to this point where I need something else. I wasn't happy. We could go over the whole host of symptoms I was feeling, but I knew I needed something else. And so I had gotten connected with a woman who practiced Reiki. And within the first few sessions, my whole world really kind of shifted because this new aspect of life, of existence, came into my awareness that I had never even heard of. And it really lit this fire within me to begin pursuing different types of healing modalities. And so it was really from my own healing that I explored Reiki. And then I got into shamanic healing, again, to heal myself. And so it was after several years of working on myself, also going to graduate school, working in that arena to get that degree, because I knew I wanted to be able to help people in a really professional capacity. But I knew I also wanted to tie in those alternative practices as well. And so with my training in traditional mental health therapy, Reiki, shamanic work, intuitive work, I've blended it all together now to offer kind of a unique style of healing
Yeah.
work. So
And
here
when
I
you,
am.
and here you are, but did you have a rough childhood?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. I did. Yes, very traumatic. Really kind of right from the get-go. I was born into a family that was not very cohesive. And I should say we're all wonderful now. We've all done a lot of healing work, and so we're great now, but I had a very rough life. Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
that was a gift because now you're doing what you came here to do. Thank you childhood, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I'm able to view it that way now because I see, this larger picture of how all the pieces fit together.
Yeah,
Because if I didn't have to heal, I never would have understood or even explored Reiki or shamanic work, probably.
right.
So yeah,
Exactly.
I have that
So
gratitude.
now I'm thinking, okay, so you're a mom, I'm a
Yep.
mom, and I think because you're at the early age of 2 and 5, right?
Yep.
And I'm at 14 and 16. So their childhood is, pretty much at the end of the
Mm.
spectrum. So we had a conversation the other day. Paige goes, gosh, my 16-year-old, I really had a good childhood. I can't look back. And I'm like, thank you,
Oh.
God, but you really, I didn't have them till I was 37 and 40. So, as an older parent and done a lot of the work, didn't have a great childhood. I mean, I had a great childhood for what I had. It wasn't like traumatic, but there was stuff, but I always in my head thought, I'm going to get older. I'm going to have it right. I'm going to have these babies and, have them have this great childhood, right? That very intentional, you
Yes.
know, but when I hear her say that, what do you do now with your babies?
Oh, well, I take this as the greatest honor to be a mother, because I do view that they chose me to be their mother. And so they have been like catalysts on my own healing journey as well, because I try to be very intentional with them as well, trying to make very conscious shifts in how I raise them as opposed to the way that I was raised. And so being a gentle parent is very important to me. Being a very present parent, really presence and compassion and grace. And I feel like those are some of the best gifts that we can give our children, because I'm still learning alongside them, right?
Right. Yeah,
They're
me
still
too.
very young as well. You too, right? Every single stage of our children's lives brings with it a new opportunity for our own growth and development and learning about ourselves on an even deeper level. So I always try to continue to do my own work so that I can show up in the best way possible. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, for sure. And, I look at my, looking back at motherhood and when it began, and um, being present was one of the things. Like I never wanted to go back and say, shoot, or any kind of regret thing,
Right.
right? Like I was
Absolutely.
always present. And I think now that when we get older, it's like you see the fruit of your labor. We're so close. They're so we are in the moment a lot. And I know we talk a lot about what I'm learning through the podcast and, what I've learned in classes, and I share with them, the tools and everything. But, when you teach that presence, because they do what you do, not what you say.
Right. Oh,
And
yes.
when I'm present, and I really embody that, I think that's probably the biggest gift in my mind of what I could give to them.
Absolutely. Well, and I love what you said. It really is about modeling for them, because we could say all that we want to, but if we're behaving in a different way, what a conflicting message that sends. So it really is live the way that you would like to demonstrate.
Right. For sure.
Right. Totally.
Okay. So now I want to get into Reiki. So
Yes.
I used to have a day spa when I was your age.
Okay.
And I started it with the fake it till you make it mode. But I had all these healers come. I had breath work. I mean, I'm 20 something years ago. So, I had I had Reiki masters come in and do Reiki healing. And now when I look back and I think, that, it just, Qigong teachers on the weekends, it just, I was attracting it. I see now, like now I had to have a period in my life where I had children, but it came back to me here in having the podcast and where I'm searching now. But the Reiki thing, how you go into it, I think it just opened me today when I was reading about like the different chakras and how I know they all relate to something. And I've always known that. I can see you sitting in your bedroom or wherever with the colors and the balls and everything, and sitting there and doing a meditation and grounding and sitting down and opening your posture. But will you explain to me really, like, why do you think you were drawn to Reiki, and what do you feel like when you help people with that? It's a lot of trauma, a lot of wounds that you're clearing.
Yes, absolutely. So I definitely feel that Reiki is something that can benefit everybody. Absolutely, because Reiki is a term for universal life force energy. So that's something that's flowing within all of us. And so it's sort of like when we get to a point on our journey, there is something within us that kind of awakens that then I suppose does attract that healing modality. And so most of the people that come to me, very similarly to my own experience, it's like I need something else. It's like they wake up from this human experience and they know there's something else. And so Reiki is almost that it almost gives you a sense of remembering that life force within you, and it awakens something, and it kind of stirs this energy that then begins to move through your being. And so if we speak about the chakras, then it starts to kind of awaken those in a different way than when we're not focused on our spirit, or we're not focused on that energetic piece of healing. So I feel that everybody kind of comes to Reiki at a point in time where they're ready to receive it, because they're ready to kind of recognize that within themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so when you go deeper into that,
Yeah.
and because I don't know if we should talk about the shamanism and that connected, because I know that you use them both indirectly or directly.
Yep. Well, so when I do a shamanic healing session, I definitely weave Reiki into that. But when I do Reiki, they're very different types of healing modalities, I'll say.
Right.
But the commonality between the two is that we're working with spirit, right? We're working within our energy bodies, but we're also inviting in our spirit guides, our higher selves. So that's kind of the common thread between the two.
And so when you now with becoming a shaman,
So I call myself a shamanic practitioner,
okay.
but it is definitely something that I would say, have dedicated many years to learning different healing modalities. So I feel that somebody kind of becomes a shaman after many years of dedicating themselves to the work and dedicating themselves kind of to a way of life. So it's almost a title that you earn, that other people give you. Like, other people will call you a shaman when your life really kind of aligns in a certain way. Right. So does that make sense?
Yes. And so
Yeah.
when you found your shaman, when you were
Yeah.
searching for healing, where did you find, what did you learn in that was like, whoa, I have got to do this?
So, oh man, this was such a profound experience for me. Because I'm going to share, there's a practice within shamanic work called soul retrieval. And I know kind of right off the bat, that is a fairly intimidating term, right? But it's essentially bringing all these pieces of our soul back to us that become fragmented after trauma. And so when we're focusing on healing just within kind of this traditional mental health world, or just within the traditional medical field, we're missing that soul piece. And so when we experience trauma, something happens on a soul level. And so with shamanic work, we're going in on a deeper level, and we're retrieving these aspects of our consciousness that have kind of fragmented from trauma. And so that was very profound for me, because it was almost like 10 years of therapy within 2 sessions.
Oh, wow.
And so I definitely knew, okay, I have to learn how to do this for myself. I need to know how to do this for other people, because all of these years of suffering, really, I found such relief within a short period of time with shamanic work. And so,
Like what does it look like? Like
really,
what's relief mean? What does that mean?
that's a great question. So before I began shamanic healing, I was so incredibly anxious. I actually had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So I had incredible social anxiety, just incredibly low self-esteem, highly depressed. I was suicidal. I was under like active addiction, really just had a very low quality of life. And so shamanic work helped me find a quality of life. Truly, it helped me to understand that at my core, I was worthy, right? So I had this inherent sense of unworthiness from all these years of trauma. And shamanic work helped me remember that I didn't need to be defined by my trauma. And so I could begin kind of reworking those beliefs that I had about myself, about the world, about other people, so that I could show up in a very empowered way. So my anxiety decreased. I wasn't depressed anymore. I wanted to live. I stopped using substances. And so I do want to say it was over a period of time that I had the most significant improvement, but just feeling like I wanted to live was so significant. And that's what I really got back within the first few sessions. So to me, that was profound.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, but it's using sound, it's using breath, it's using rattles and animal.
Yes. So shamanic work uses all of that. I feel that the most important thing that I can say about shamanic work is that it's using our spiritual helpers as well, our spiritual team. So we go into a session and we call for help. We call for backup because we know that we're here in these human bodies and we're having this human experience, but there is a very real spirit world around us, and they're here to support us and help us if we call upon them. And so a shamanic practitioner or a shaman is engaging their intuition to communicate, to retrieve information from the spirit world that we can then bring forth into our human experience. And so meditation, using the rattle, using breath work, connecting with our animal guides. Yes, that's all part of it. There's so many different facets of shamanic work.
When you say animal guides, is it where it comes to you, like you realize who, like when you're talking in something about a snake, like if it was a snake, you would be scared of a snake, but if it came to you in your vision?
So this is interesting because I definitely feel that the spirit animal comes to us. It's not something that we choose. So for instance, if we wanted to go on a power animal retrieval journey, we would go into a meditative state and we would allow the spirit of that animal to come to us. And so if a snake came to you and you are initially kind of afraid of a snake, that is actually something very profound, because it's almost like this animal is coming forward with its medicine to help you shift your perception. So it always takes a little bit of reflection about that symbol and about the medicine of the spirit of that animal, why that would be coming to you, because it's different for every person, every single person. So you then begin kind of working with that, the spirit of that animal, to understand what the gift or the lesson or the message is.
Yeah. So if I was to work with you, we would get into meditation and it would be whatever animal came to me first in my mind's eye, basically.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, definitely kind of using your intuition. It would come to you that way.
And you say you're an intuitive healer. Intuitive. Have you always been intuitive? I mean, we all are intuitive. You've just learned how to tap into that as you've learned all this.
That's right. Yep. So it's funny because if you would have told me that I'd be doing this work when I was a child, I would have laughed because although I was absolutely fascinated with this metaphysical world, I didn't feel that I had any kind of intuitive gifts. I had had a few experiences in my life of saying something that I had received intuitively and being kind of silenced, we'll say. And so I think I kind of shut any of that down, but it was through my own healing that my intuition and my like mediumistic capabilities really opened up. Yeah. So kind of, I would say probably when I was about 23 is when I really started to tap into it intentionally and started to study it and hone those skills.
And it's through meditation.
So I would say meditation is very important because it helps us to become very aware of what our energy is, what our own soul essence feels like, so that we're then more understanding of intuitive information that comes in to our field. So meditation, but also there are a lot of practices that we can do that help us refine our different intuitive skills as well. So I've studied with teachers. I've had about 2 or 3 different teachers over the last several years. But meditation is a really good place to start.
You also talk about relationships and twin flames. And now that I understand that you're married, was, to heal the trauma, to get into a healthy relationship and meet your soulmate. I don't know, is it your twin flame?
This is a great question. Yeah. So my husband and he and I actually met when I was 18 or 19 years old. And I'm 32 now. So he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I feel that he was a huge catalyst for helping me to heal. And so I feel that he is definitely one of my soulmates. Absolutely. So my understanding of twin flames, I think, is a little bit different than a lot of people's, because I think, so this is me coming from the traditional mental health world,
right?
I'm trying to bridge my understanding of these spiritual connections that we have. I feel that we have so many significant relationships within our lives that it's hard to say that one is more significant, because if we look at it from a higher perspective, each relationship is really teaching us something. And so we choose these people before we're born, before we incarnate, to learn things with. And so I know that I chose my husband, Joe. I know that he and I chose each other to be married, to have babies together, to really grow up together. I mean, so I'm 32 now, we were 18.
Right.
But the way that I view twin flames, I don't know if I believe in twin flames in the way that most people speak about them, as in half of a soul. The way that I kind of understand twin flames to be from this traditional mental health perspective, it can be two people who really mirror wounds back to one another. And so this relationship feels so intense because you have come into each other's lives to be such significant catalysts for healing, and that all often feels tumultuous. And so what I've seen is that a lot of people within this twin flame dynamic have a lot of trauma. And so sometimes it can be kind of like a codependent relationship in a way. And so I always like to use the term twin flames kind of with that little cautionary message, because sometimes twin flame relationships can be kind of relationships that resemble twin flame relationships, the way they're spoken about, can actually be kind of abusive or even toxic. I want to say it's this like push-pull dynamic where I don't necessarily know if that's healthy, right? And so I think people have to really approach it with a very open mind to understand, is this really a relationship where we're serving one another's growth in a positive way? Or are we enmeshed within this kind of codependent relationship because our wounds are magnetized to one another? And are we living out kind of a trauma bond? So,
Right.
Yeah.
But like, because relationships are our biggest teachers.
Absolutely.
And our limiting beliefs that, you talk a lot about your self-talk and the worthiness, and then it connects to the chakras. And I'm like, but within your relationship or in a relationship, and, we come into it with all these, our childhood trauma, and then you come together and it's going to be this big lesson that you've chosen to do together. I mean, if you understand that, but will you explain, like the triggers? I mean, you talk a lot about, I love helping people with limiting beliefs. I love understanding to be, like in a relationship and realize, oh, I'm not going to react to that. That's not me, really cleaning my inner, whatever self out. So so the triggers become, very far and few between.
Right. Absolutely. And I completely agree with that. I think our relationships are our biggest teachers. And so we really come into relationships too that often resemble relationships we had growing up with our family. And so I know from my experience, Joe, my husband, is like the very first stable, healthy man that I kind of experience. And so he and I had actually a very kind of challenging start to our relationship, because there were so many triggers, because I didn't really know what a healthy relationship was. I'd never really seen that modeled. I had never had that in my own life. And so it took us a lot of working together to communicate when we're feeling triggered so that we could work through it, because otherwise it's just fighting, because we're both coming to the relationship with different perceptions of what a relationship is like based on our lived experience. And so if people aren't kind of open to communicating and open to working through some of that discomfort, our triggers can be they can almost like repel us in a way, because we really are reflecting these wounds to one another. So but again, then if we work through that, we can really grow together.
Yeah. Are you two like that? Is he on the same, like wants to grow and just like you?
Yes. Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, he and I we've been married for almost 10 years. And so it's been kind of a consistent dedication to one another to continue to grow, because we continue to change as people and new things come up, especially after having children. That brings a whole new flavor into the mix. But we're very dedicated to that with one another, to growing together. So communication, learning that has been very important.
Yes, I I'm all about that. Okay. I want to
Mm,
talk more about the shamanism because I
Sure.
find that fascinating. And I know
Yeah.
there's the soul
Yeah.
retrieval. There's 5 different levels of something. What,
Hmm.
no?
Oh, so I'm feeling that perhaps you saw a reel or maybe another podcast I was on, I was speaking about different types of,
Soul loss.
soul loss. Yeah. So things that can contribute to soul loss.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And what
again,
is soul loss
yeah,
first?
that's a great question. So soul loss is essentially, we can kind of think of it like, if we come into this life with a full battery, and over time we experience things that kind of chip away at our sense of personal power. And so over time, if we have such a low level of our personal power, we're going to essentially kind of like lose a piece of us, is what it feels like. And again, we have to kind of expand our minds to be open-minded about this. This isn't something we often speak about in traditional mental health or the medical field. But when we experience trauma or anything painful or anything that feels like a threat to our survival, a part of our consciousness kind of goes and hides. We can think of it kind of going into the subconscious. So we're not really operating with our full life force. And so that can bring up a whole host of issues: fatigue, anxiety, depression. I mean, all of these things that seem to be kind of really prevalent nowadays can be a sign of soul loss, which is when we're not operating with the full battery, we'll say. That's the best way I can kind of explain it. So to heal, we want to bring those pieces back. We want to recharge our batteries. We want to reestablish our sense of self and our sense of personal power. So that's what soul loss is. So things that can contribute to soul loss, we have something called power loss, which is essentially when we are kind of giving our power away to other people, or other people are kind of taking it. And so this is where the concept of boundaries is very, very important, where the concept of our sense of self is very important, because if we're kind of allowing people to like take advantage of us in a way, and that can happen for a lot of different reasons, but they're kind of taking our power, right? Or we're allowing our power to be taken, and that depletes our life force. Yeah, so I'm just making sure I'm not going off on a tangent here.
No, I'm
Yeah,
learning.
we're
I
good.
love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said, okay, so that was power loss. And then I did kind of speak about another one in there. People can kind of take our energy. So that's a second way that we can experience soul loss. We can also experience soul loss, once again, from like a very significant trauma or trauma over time. So that can be experiencing a family where you're neglected, where you're physically abused. Sexual abuse is a very, very significant cause of soul loss. So really significant trauma. We can also experience soul loss just kind of from our generational trauma. So we kind of come into this experience already with things within us that are preventing our full expression in a way. So generational trauma. Oh man, and now I'm on the spot here and I can't remember what the fifth.
Oh, that's okay. I
Okay.
probably wrote them down, but it's all good. I mean, I get
You
it.
get the gist, yeah.
But what just came into my mind is, we're moving into this people call New Earth, ascension, and people are healing. But I look at what you're doing as part of that ascension, as part of people getting rid of their, bringing back their souls, that they've lost from the traumatic childhood or whatever during their lifetime. And explain how, because I always ask this because I remember like 2 years ago, I interviewed somebody and it was like the first time this podcast went out in 2020. So it was like at the beginning of this whole new earth or whatever transition. But when I hear people like you and where you're coming from, and, I'm attracted to you on Instagram, and then I start following you, and I have these other people, breath work, I had a couple other shamans that I've interviewed on here. Is it all coming to, are these souls that you picked to come at this time with these tools, or these gifts to help ascend this population, this earth, into the next dimension, into the 5D? Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. I absolutely think that there is a divine hand at play within the things that we're experiencing now. And I feel that collectively, every single person on this earth right now has chosen to be here right now for their own soul's growth, but also to help the collective grow and expand. And so everybody is serving a very important purpose in that. And I definitely do feel that we're seeing a rise in interest within some of these healing modalities, these alternative healing modalities, just an interest in metaphysics and spirituality, because people are really waking up to the fact that there's so much more to us than just our human experience. So I feel like everything is kind of going on schedule. Sometimes we also have to experience major upheaval to shake things up so that people kind of stop and evaluate how things are going, and then reevaluate how they want to move forward. And that's really what I'm seeing play out right now.
Yeah. I mean,
in a major way.
in a major way. And
Yeah.
I've, the guests that I've had on here have been, people would say, wow, where'd you find her? I said, she just like you, like, where did you, and I just know it's like, I'm being led on my path, and I'm being led to, I'm sure this podcast was an inspired thought, and from my higher self that said, you're going to be your avenue to help share these beautiful people that are here to move the world to the next level. And I really believe that. And I see it more and more as I keep, every week goes by. It's like, I haven't missed a week of this podcast. It's like a full on passion. I love it so much. And I see, like, meeting you and how much I learned from you just for the last few days, and it's like, gosh, you've really elevated my soul. And I understand, why you came into my life, and how I can use even what you did just right here at home with my girls, with my children,
I
So
love that. Well, and I really think that every connection that we have is significant, even if we can't see it. Even the person that held the door open for you at the coffee shop, there's something within that, really, truly. And so I do feel like we're all brought to each other at the right time for the right reason. And sometimes we don't see that beautiful lesson until years later.
right.
But even the people that we connect with where it's not very pleasant, I feel like sometimes that can even be a very significant meeting as well.
Oh, for sure. Gosh,
Yeah.
I look at people so differently in the last couple years than I've ever even thought I would. I mean, I just, at Pilates, and we're on the machine, and I'm looking at these people going, they're all these souls. They all chose to be here at this time, just like I did. We're all on our own journeys, but yeah, I have these, like, my conversations in my head, or at the grocery store, it's like, I'm like thinking, gosh, and I'm watching the clerk at the, like, thinking what's almost like trying to, not just like connect with her energy. So much more intentional, believe me. Okay. So I want to talk about the, how you talk about feminine, because you're so feminine.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so many, like, I feel like the world we had lacked the feminine. I know I've talked to a few people that were like moving more toward the feminine and less the Mother Earth, right? Will you talk about that?
Absolutely. So just like what you said, I feel like right now we're seeing a rise within this feminine. I mean, if we look back within like United States history specifically, women have been suppressed. All throughout the world, women are very, very suppressed. And so we have to understand, and at least this is from my perception, my belief system, what I've learned, we really have two aspects within our energy. We have a masculine and we have a feminine. So within every single person, we have those two streams of energy. And so some of us choose to kind of physically embody one or the other, but all of those characteristics are within us in some way. And so we have to have a balance of the two to truly be healthy. And so, we could go through a list of what the masculine characteristics are, what the feminine characteristics are. But we do have to have that balance. And so what's kind of interesting right now, we're seeing this uprise of like feminine feminine energy kind of reclaiming power here. It's that power of being embodied, the power of the emotions. So not just intellect and the mental space, but also the physical aspects, being really in tune with our bodies here. And so that, often looks like healthy sensuality, healthy emotional expression. This can be a very deep topic once we kind of jump into it, but we really need a healthy expression of both. We need that balance of masculine and feminine. I think the best way that I can kind of describe it is not detaching and just being purely in our mind and in our intellect, but it's honoring emotions, honoring the expression, compassion, being gentle, but also feminine energy can be fierce and protective, like a mother would be, right? And so I feel like that's really shifting in the world right now too. What does it mean to have a feminine expression? Are we in tune with our bodies? Are we in tune with the earth and honoring Mother Earth as we are not just inhabitants of the earth, but we're like part of nature. And so to me, that's also what honoring the feminine is all about as well. Nature. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the powers of kind of creation that we all are our own creators in a way. So it's honoring that aspect of ourselves as well, being creators.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to look at that. And I think, I've been, I interviewed this guy that was so amazing, and he talked about, nature and, you go outside, and I have to be outside, and why I live in San Diego, even though it rained the last 2 days, I'm still outside. But I'm now connecting with the trees more and listening to the trees. That's part of shamanism, the rocks.
Absolutely.
Explain that, because what's your practice in that? Like, what do you learn from being a shaman when you go out in nature?
So from a shamanic perspective, everything has a life force because everything is part of spirit. So not just humans, but everything that we can see in creation, animals, trees, rocks have a life force. And so we treat them as such. We treat them as having sovereignty. Similarly to how you would interact with a person, you would respect their free will, you would respect their life force and their soul as an expression of God. That's kind of the way I like to view it. And so the way that I kind of work with nature within my own practice is having reverence for the land that I'm on. So talking to the piece of land that I'm on and thanking the land for allowing me to be here, because I don't own this. I'm here and we're going to kind of work together. But nature has its own kind of healing force. Just like we connect to our spirit guides, we can connect to the spirits of Mother Nature here. So when we use crystals, I feel that we often have a tendency to just look at them as having a vibration. But why is that? Because it has a spirit. It can't talk to us with the way that we talk to humans, but if we tune into it, we can receive messages through its vibration. And so I always just try to kind of focus on that. When I'm using an element of earth in my practice, we're working together. I'm not controlling you or forcing you to work with me. I'm asking you through this reciprocity. So before I do any kind of work as well, I'll often give an offering to the land that I'm on. And that can be a lot of different things. I'll give, Reiki to the land. I will, what's another? Just even saying prayers over the land, showing gratitude. What I often do when I have flowers, I if they're starting to kind of give them back to the land. So it's this, I guess that's really important balance of reciprocity, this giving and this taking of, I don't have power over you. We're here working in partnership because I honor your life force.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, just to like, for people to understand that, I even,
Yeah.
I just look, it's such a beautiful way to be on this earth when you have that
Mhm. Yeah.
understanding. I love it. When you talk about like, I mean, there's world, top
Mm.
world, middle, and a lower.
Yes. The upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Explain that.
yeah. So within a shamanic perspective, there is so much going on outside of this physical world. So the upper world would be considered, some people might refer it to as the heavenly realm, the angelic realm, where our spirits go when we leave this physical earth. And so we can always connect to the beings within that upper world for help, for support. And so the upper world is also then kind of divided into different layers, but we won't go into that. But that's essentially the world of beings that have crossed over from our physical existence. And so the middle world is kind of this overlay of our physical world. So we could kind of communicate with the spirits of nature when we're in the middle world. You can kind of think of anything that would be here in the physical world, its spirit is kind of inhabiting that middle world. And then the lower world is, how would I describe this? So it's very important to make the distinction that the lower world is not the same as like the underworld, as in hell from like a religious context.
Mm-hmm.
It can even be like the deeper forces of nature, animal spirits, things like that. But if we look at it from the level of the human mind or the psyche, we have the lower world can kind of be like the subconscious. So all of those things that are not within our conscious awareness, but that are still very much within our energy bodies. So from a shamanic perspective, I work within the lower world a lot with my clients because it's very similar to like the subconscious realm. So we can kind of go to that to understand traumas and things that have influenced our energy. To retrieve parts of us that have fragmented from trauma, to bring them back. So the middle world is also very important to that. This can kind of be an area of illusion in a way. So we always like to kind of work in the upper world or the lower world when we're doing meditations, because my teacher actually described it to me once that the upper world and the lower world have bouncers or like gatekeepers that only allow certain spiritual beings to kind of inhabit or visit those places. And so the middle world is kind of a free-for-all. So we can have, even if you think of like ghosts, things like that, it can be spirits and energies that are just kind of roaming about. So still can be very important to go to the middle world to retrieve information and to communicate with different spirits, but each level has their own purpose. You would go to a different level to retrieve a different kind of information or communicate with a different spirit.
But that's what you're doing that with your client and working with, and that's how you reference. You use the upper, middle, and lower.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I would do a meditation, or we call it a shamanic journey, to go into an altered state of consciousness to retrieve information from either of those layers of existence, and communicate with the different beings in those levels.
And communicate with the beings. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So the higher, like this, you say the highest one is the spirit, the souls that have been removed from their bodies. Sure. They're human. Okay. So you can communicate, like my dad passed away. Would you communicate with?
Yep.
My grandma.
World. Yep.
You go to the upper world.
Yep. So essentially, I think
like a medium.
Yep.
like a medium.
Yes.
Can you do that?
Yeah. Yep.
Because of all this? I mean, I know everyone can do it.
Yes. So I've definitely put many, many years of practice into my mediumship. So healing myself so that I can be a clear vessel for this information, because if you think of the upper world as having a very high vibration, in order to connect with that, we have to be able to meet that, but then they also have to lower theirs a little to meet us. So it's a
Right.
partnership once again. But in order to raise my vibration, I've had to do a lot of healing, but I've also had to dedicate myself to learning about my unique intuition so that I can understand that language, so that I can communicate with spirit. So it's, yeah, everybody can do it. I definitely think that they can. It can just take some intentional practice, I think.
Right. And so the soul loss, when you get all those fragments back in, is that the ultimate goal? Like right now, are all your are you full battery charge?
So that's a great question, because throughout our life, it's very, very common to have several pieces missing. And so it's kind of like a consistent process of always making sure you're living your truth, that you are acting out of integrity so that you can maintain all those pieces. So I definitely feel like today, as opposed to when I started, I feel like I'm operating with a full deck of cards, we'll say. I definitely feel that way. But I'm going to continue to live my life, and I could continue to experience certain traumas. And so shamanic work is great because we have these tools to go to when things happen. So I also like to think of shamanic work as a preventative practice, so that we are staying healthy, so that we're more resilient and able to move through and heal from traumas, so that we're not necessarily experiencing such a significant level of soul loss.
Got it.
So yeah.
I get that.
Mhm.
So if, let's say you didn't have children and you didn't have a husband and you just had one day to yourself,
Mhm.
what are your practices? Like, what do you do to honor all the work
Mhm.
that you've done?
Yes.
Honor
So
yourself.
on myself, yeah. So I love continuing to read and continuing to learn about spiritual concepts, healing modalities. But I also like to move my body and be really physically active, to honor my vessel, my body, also tuning into that feminine energy. So I really actually love spending time by myself, because I do love meditating. I love connecting with my own essence, and I guess practicing that self-care. Yeah, that's what a great day by myself would look like, is continuing to work on myself through reading and meditation and physical work. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely interwoven, I think, into my everyday.
Do you teach your girls yet to
Yeah.
meditate?
Oh, yes. And the wonderful thing is that they're learning it at school too. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, we, over Thanksgiving, I was celebrating with my husband's family. We have a huge family, and my daughter, my 5-year-old, walked outside and she said, "I just need to take some breaths."
Oh
So she
my
sat down
gosh.
in the grass and was breathing and meditating. And I often see her coaching my 2-year-old through breathing when they're getting kind of frustrated. But I definitely teach them to meditate. I teach them about spirit. I teach them about their own spirits. So we always have a little bedtime routine as well, where we connect in with spirit and we say thank you and give gratitude for our lives and for the day.
What does
And
it
so
look like when you connect with your spirits? Like when you talked about this in a video on Instagram that I was watching, like giving them they have a story. Each
mm,
little,
yeah.
we're protected and guided. But how would you explain that?
Mhm. So every soul that we connect with, every spirit guide, they are their own essence, just like we are here, although they don't have bodies. And so they've lived lifetimes, many lifetimes. And so I always think of honoring them again with that sense of reciprocity, that giving and that taking. So as opposed to me just trying to constantly connect with them for information, I sit in meditation and I allow them an opportunity to also speak to me
Right.
and to just show my gratitude. And so sometimes that just looks like sitting in silence or saying prayers of gratitude to them, specifically like my ancestors, who I wouldn't be who I am without, right? So honoring the story of my lineage and how I've gotten to be where I am today. And so I like to dedicate a bit of time every day to honoring them in that way. And often that just looks like sitting in silence and in reverence for them and the work that they continue to bring into my life.
Right. Is it clairaudient? How do you hear? Do you
Oh,
hear?
so I'm primarily clairsentient, which is clear feeling, but also claircognizant, which is clear knowing. So I often just have this sense of understanding something. But then this clear feeling, I'll have an emotion come up that helps me understand. And so I kind of weave them all together. So clairaudience is probably the lowest one on my level of ability or skill. But I'm also very clairvoyant. So I see a lot.
So you can see what do you, what do you see? What does
Yeah,
it look like?
great. So the thing about clairvoyance, it's not actually very common to see things with your physical eyes outside of you. It often appears as if you're using your imagination. So a picture in your mind's eye, almost like a movie, but spirit speaks to us through metaphor, through symbol, through our own memories. And so this is where it takes a little bit of practice to decipher your own clairvoyant abilities, because your symbols are different than other people's. And so
Right.
it often takes a little bit of piecing them together and interpreting what spirit is trying to convey to you through these messages, and then sharing that in a way that is cohesive and people can understand. Yeah.
Man, I mean, I really could sit here for 2 more hours.
Oh,
You're amazing. Oh, I
oh,
just am
thank you.
so happy that I got to meet
Yeah,
you. I
this
was
is
so
wonderful.
excited.
Yeah.
So we can find you on Instagram at Insights.
Insights with Rachel, just like that. No special characters, no additional letters or numbers.
Yeah, because they
Insights
have
with
all
Rachel.
all
Lots of,
those people that are out there.
yeah, lots of fake
Yeah.
accounts out there.
And then your website.
So my website you can also find on my page, but that is Illuminate Intuitive Insights LLC.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be one of Rachel's last words of
Mm.
inspiration that you'd want to share that just comes to you?
Oh man. Your journey and your life is purposeful, and you are not here by accident, and you are leaving a legacy, and everybody that you come in contact with benefits from experiencing you. And so I hope that you're able to honor and appreciate that your unique mission here on earth. You have a
Oh,
purpose. Yeah.
yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, it
Yeah.
was so fun.
Thank you, Ashley.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. We're in each other's lives now. You can't
Yes,
escape me.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you.